Yes, there was a moment at the opening of the full session of the G7 when Boris Johnson said, what's all this fuss about? What a pity we're not just sort of meeting in private round a fireside. A touch disingenuous, you might say. This is a man who's deployed his baby, an aircraft carrier, and tonight, not just the Queen, but other senior members of the royal family. You normally only see a collection like this at a wedding or a funeral. He said when he was talking about the special relationship recently that he didn't like the phrase because it made Britain seem a little needy. Well, he certainly seems a very assiduous host, very good, very keen indeed to make a good impression on his hosts. There has been no duffing up by EU leaders. He may get a little bit of that in the private bilateral sessions that happen tomorrow, but they know that President Biden wants this to be a success story. He wants everyone to see this as a moment when he's been using this slogan, America is back, but when the West is back as a collection of states that can actually work together. And that plays into something that you keep hearing from different delegations here, that Boris Johnson is a lucky Prime Minister. Not only is he hosting this summit at a time when the world's attention is on it, because the leaders haven't been together before, but it's at a moment, because of COVID, but it's at a moment when there is an enormous consensus amongst the leaders there that they want this to work. Plus, of course, the good news for many of them round the table that Donald Trump is not around to rubbish the entire meeting with a tweet as he flies out, as he did from one previous G7 meeting. Here's how today went.
Here we go, everybody.
Centre stage, every Prime Minister's dream moment. But wherever the G7 gathers, the United States is the critical player. Watch President Macron hold back to make sure he has a very public bonding moment with President Biden. Joe Biden wants this summit to show the age of Donald Trump is over. And post-COVID, democracies can work together for the wider global good.
Thank you all very much for coming. It is genuinely wonderful to see everybody in person. I can't tell you what a difference it makes. We've all been going through the most wretched pandemic our countries have faced for our lifetimes, maybe longer, much longer. And I actually think this is a meeting that genuinely needs to happen.
Boris Johnson, opening the first round-table session, echoed the agenda of the man sat next to him.
We need to make sure that as we recover, we level up across our societies and we build back better. And I actually think that we have a huge opportunity to do that, because as G7, we are united in our vision for a cleaner, greener world, and building back greener, and building back fairer, and building back more equal, and in a more gender-neutral and perhaps like a more feminine way. How about that?
Not a line you heard the Prime Minister push when he was sitting next to Donald Trump. Outside, a few climate change campaigners were trying to keep the pressure up on the leaders, even though America's new president is committed to combating climate change. Earlier, leaders, some of them accompanied by their partners, were formally introduced to Boris and Carrie Johnson. COVID compliance was stricter for some than it was for others. President Biden wants this summit to be remembered as a moment when democracies prove they can lead the world out of COVID with generous help for vaccines in countries where vaccination has barely started. President Macron knows the US president won't welcome a spat with Boris Johnson over the Northern Ireland Protocol, stealing attention from that. But Number 10's braced for EU leaders here in a show of unity before the main talks started, pressurising Boris Johnson in their separate meetings with him tomorrow. At the back of the G7 hotel, Joe Biden's national security advisor was whisked off by his UK counterpart to see some British military hardware. The UK and the EU are rival wooers for the American administration's heart here. At the round table session, Boris Johnson mocked the relentless choreography of his own summit.
I'm now going to ask our friends from the media very, very kindly to leave us to our deliberations, which by tradition, this is meant to be a fight democracies of the world. It's turned into a gigantic media circus in which we have to greet each other several times.
Tonight at the Eden Project, an eco-visitor attraction, the G7 leaders are being treated to a reception with the Queen and other members of the royal family. Demonstrations in the immediate vicinity of the G7 conference have been low-key today. Amongst the extra national leaders invited to join the Seven for talks tomorrow, Australia's Prime Minister, who's taking some stick from COVID Fortress Australia for visiting the UK at all. A reminder of the global COVID challenges the leaders gathered in Cornwall want to combat, but which many say their pledges don't match.